Good morning and welcome to ITS Connect for the month of June. I'm glad you could join us this morning. My name is Jennifer Loudiana. I am the Education and Training Specialist in ITS, and we use these sessions to get some news out, tips and tricks, new enterprise products, anything like that. At the end of the session, we'll be sending you a survey so that if you have ideas that you think that the campus or your department would like to see, you can let us know. Today's topic is some tips and tricks for Google Mail and Calendar. We've had Google Mail on campus and Calendar for a couple of years, and throughout that time, Google actually adds new features, changes things as they go, and some people may not have noticed that. So we thought we would point out a few things that are different, a few things that may have been there that are useful to a lot of people on campus as well, to help you get the best out of your experience of using Calendar and Mail. So I mentioned Google Mail and Calendar, an overview of some tips and tricks. We only have 30 minutes today, and hopefully I'll leave some time for questions at the end. One note, some of the items I will talk about do work best in the Google Chrome browser. So if you are using a different browser, you may try to use them and they don't work very well. Some of the gadgets are made to work with the Google products together, so you may want to use the Chrome browser for that. And then also a lot of these tips and tricks do apply to the webmail.case.edu and webcalendar.case.edu. So they're settings that you can use if you're using the web client in particular. So first I'm going to talk about Google Mail. I'm going to walk through and talk a little bit about the features, and then I'll demonstrate them, and then we'll jump into Calendar in the second half. So a couple of things you may notice on the left-hand side of your mail, you have your labels or folders or what you need. It has your inbox, all mail, sent mail, trash, those kinds of things, and then your custom labels. And below that is the chat area. And sometimes your chat area might overlap your labels, sometimes the other, vice versa. And there is a way to toggle between those. There's a little button you can push, and I'll show you that. Also in the mail, the box that says mail, if you hit that drop down, that's where you now can find your contacts and your tasks. Those used to be part of the list on the left, and they've moved them up to the mail. There's a little tiny arrow. If you click that, you can drop it down. Also, if you haven't changed over, there is a new compose feature, which is kind of nice. You can turn it on and try it out and then revert back. Eventually, Google will make it the standard, so you may want to try it out and see how it works a little bit. And also, the reply and forward are still the same. One nice thing about the compose feature is that it allows you to compose your message and keep your email inbox there too. So when you open it to compose now, a lot of times it just opens, it takes up that window, whereas the new feature actually will open on the bottom corner, and you can make it bigger, but it's nice because you can still see your email, you can still see your chat and things like that while you're working on your message. In addition, it will actually let you insert pictures that will show in the message, which is nice. If you're sending them, you used to have to attach them, and now when you attach them, they will show in the message. You can also insert links. You can link things to Google Docs. There's a couple of attachment things that you can do. And then you can also, I mentioned, compose the message and see the inbox. So one of the big enhancements is along the bottom. If you have your webmail open, you're welcome to kind of walk through these as I'm talking. You will see that when you open the compose feature, when I show you along the bottom, there will be quite a lot of different attachments that you can do for your email, which is kind of nice because then you can attach things without having to do file attach every single time. And it also links to the Google products, which is nice. A new feature that has appeared is called the Configure Inbox. And this allows you to configure your inbox to have actually tabs across the top. And it can take those tabs and take your email and put them in those categories for you. So for example, the main one is called primary, and that's all your mail that does not fit into any of the other tabs. They can have a tab for social media. It's called social tab, which would filter emails and things for your Google Plus and stuff like that that's social media related. You can also have one that's update. So if you have notifications turned on for some of the Google products, you can actually have the updates all go to one tab area, so you wouldn't get them all in your main email box. So it's another tool that Google's giving you to help you organize your email, help you keep track of things better. All of these you can turn on and off as I'm talking about different things. But the nice thing is, if you want to be very organized and this works for you, you can use it. If not, you can turn it off. So we'll look at that in a little bit. Another thing that's been there for a while is called priority inbox sorting, and it allows you to be able to create a sorting mechanism for your inbox. There are 3 options. You can do the important things first, and this is based on a Google algorithm and what comes in and out of your email box, and that's how they'll determine what's important. If you only want all the unread messages at the top, you can choose that, and then everything else will be below. And then if you use the starring feature, if you don't use it, next to your messages you'll see a little outline of a star. If you click on that, it will color it in, and then it puts it in the starred full labeling area. You can put all of those items first. And the last is the priority inbox, and that actually allows you to pick how you want it to work. So do you want unread items, and then you want important, then you want starred, and then you want everything else? However works for you. You have 4 different options there, and I'll demonstrate that as well. You can get to this through the settings, which is the little tiny gear looking item on the top right of your email. And if you click that drop down and go to settings and go to the inbox tab there, you'll be able to scroll down. You'll see the very top, it'll have the priority inbox. Another thing about your inbox, whether maybe you've noticed this for a while, you would see little tabs, and you can see on the screen here that I have a little yellow tab icon. Those are also next to each email, and Google was using an algorithm, and it would decide what's important based on how often you emailed someone and what the frequency was, the topics. It has a whole algorithm, and it would tag these, and you can actually turn off that automatic tagging or keep it on. It depends on how you want to use that feature as well. So some general settings to keep in mind. You can change your default text and look and feel. So if you want the text in your emails to be blue and 20-point font, you can do that. If you want them to be smaller, larger, you can change the color. You can do that through the settings. You can also change along the top row. You'll see once you click on a message, so if you have your email open now, you can click on the checkbox, and you'll see a row of gray boxes that appear. They might have words in them, and they might not, but that's a setting that you can turn on and off. And so you can turn it on to say, I want the icons, or I want the actual text to show up, so I know what those are. So for example, one of those boxes is for archive, so you may want it to say archive in it. So if you turn that on, it'll say archive, send, trash, across the top. And then the last setting I want to point out is something that I just found out, is that you can have your signature line show at the top for forwarding messages. So if you're forwarding a message, if you've ever noticed your signature doesn't automatically show, and you probably had to scroll down and cut and paste it because it usually drops to the bottom of the message. Well, there is now a setting in the signature area that you can check a box, and it will automatically bump up your signature if you're forwarding. So that's a nice feature. It saves you a little time from either having to retype it or cut and paste it, your signature, if you want it to show up at the top before all the forwarding information below. Another feature a lot of people may not be aware of are called labs, and Google has these for most all of their products. They have a lot for mail, which is probably their most popular product. If you already have a Gmail account, you will see these as well. Some interesting labs I'll show you. There is an undo send. If those of you who are using Outlook, I know, has that, where it pops up and says undo, and you can undo your send message and recall it. That gives you about 10 seconds, I believe. It's kind of short, but it'll pop up a message that says, you've sent this message, do you want to undo it? And if you click it, it'll recall the message. Another thing is the preview pane, and this allows you to preview your messages. Also, there's a way that you can set that up so that you can preview them however you want. So if you want to have your email look like Outlook. So you want to have your message here and you want to have a row of the email here and the message here. You can set that up either horizontally, vertically, however that works, but it allows you to have a preview pane. So you'll see all the messages and then you'll see the one that you click on here and you'll be able to see the messages. Also, it allows you, there's another one for Google Docs previews. So if someone sends you a Google Doc in an email, you can actually click a view and it will allow you to preview it before you open it. So that's another nice lab. One thing also, the last one is an unread messages icon, which will tell you you have unread messages. One other thing about labs, these are actually little gadgets that programmers, developers have developed to work with the mail system or calendar or one of the Google products. However, sometimes Google will take those and they will eventually incorporate them, and sometimes they won't and they'll go away. So keep that in mind. If you enable some kind of different things, you might see that they don't work, and in that case, just go into the settings and I'll show you this and just disable them. But you might want to scroll through. There's some fun little gadgets for organizing. There's things that are common. Like I said, undo send is something you may want to turn on if you want to make sure that you don't want to send something by accident. So I'm going to walk through Google Mail demonstration, and I'm going to walk through all the items I just talked about. And so this mailbox is actually one of our test users. So I talked briefly about a toggle for the mail and the chat. You'll notice I have the mail here, and if I hover down here are all of the labels that I have set up. If I hover away, it'll do this. If I actually want to switch, at the very bottom there's a little black icon and it says chat, but it allows you to toggle those. So if I click on it, you'll notice on the left hand side now I have a list of all of the labels that I'm using. If I click on it again, now you can see the chat. So some people, if you have a lot of labels, you might have to do that. I use it all the time because it sometimes disappears if I'm working on my labels and I need to send a chat or something like that. I can click it and the chat comes up over top. So it's a nice toggle feature. I also mentioned on the mail drop down, there's a little tiny arrow here. If you click on that drop down, you'll notice there are the contacts and the tasks. So if you are using the tasks, that's where you can find them. If you're not, it's a nice tool. You can put your to-do lists in there. The other nice feature, if you use dating, it'll actually attach them to your calendar. So it's a good organizational tool, the tasks feature. And then also your contacts are there. These both used to be on the left-hand side, and they moved them up under this mail tab. And I talked about the compose feature. So I'm going to click on compose and it's going to show me this is the old version. If you have this version, you'll notice at the very top there is try out the new compose experience. And if you click on that, it will actually change it for you. And you can learn more about it and things like that. There's a video, they have information on how to use the new tool. And you notice I mentioned you can still see your inbox here, you can see your chat. It just takes up a little less real estate. It's kind of nice to have it just off to the side. That way you can do other things. You can switch back and forth a little bit easier. Along the bottom, I mentioned all of the different ways to attach. And if you click on the plus, you can attach an item. So that's the most common thing. You're attaching a file or document. You can attach using Google Drive documents. You can attach photos. You can insert links. You can do emoticons. And then you can insert an invitation. And then you can also just use, there's a discard. If you're not using the message and you decide, I don't want to save a draft, you can just discard it. Another thing too, if you are typing a message, Google Mail will automatically save as you go, and it will put them in this drafts folder here. So if you have a message open like this and there's nothing in it, it will save it with no subject. So sometimes you might see a draft and it shows 1 or 2 or that you have X number of drafts and they're not open. You can go in and make sure and you can just delete those drafts. But it does just save automatically. So if you've started a message and you decided you didn't want it, you may have it in your drafts or you can go in there and delete it as well. So I also talked about a brand new thing, which is the configure inbox. And this has to do with the tabbing that I talked about. So if you go up to your gear in the top right and click it, you can see a new item called configure inbox. This is not turned on by default, so you do have to tell it you want to use it. And you'll notice here there's an example. It has tabs set up. So your primary tab is going to be on the left always. And then you can set up there are 5 tabs. So you'd have social, which again would bring up messages from networks, media sharing, any kind of online services that you use, and social websites. So examples they list, Google Plus is one of them, which Google owns. You can also have a promotions tab, so it will filter things that are offers, deals, marketing materials, things like that. Updates would be updates. So this would be personal, auto-generated updates, confirmations, receipts, bills. So Google Calendar, other people's calendars, anything you have set for updates. So if you have a Google document and you want notifications of when someone updates it, it would go into this updates tab. And then forums is the last, and it groups things that are from forums, discussion boards, mailing lists, and things like that. So if you are on quite a few mailing lists and you find yourself having to create a lot of filters, this might work for you, and you wouldn't need to have as many filters maybe. You could go ahead and have them all show up on there. And then there is also a note here for starred. If you are using the starred messages, you have the option to automatically put those in your primary, no matter what they are. So if you have notifications that are starred, they will show up in your primary tab on the left-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and just save this so you can see what the tabbing looks like. And so it's reloading. When you do that also, it'll give you another little tour. So now I have 3 tabs across the top. So I have my primary, which is everything that's my regular email that doesn't fit into any of the other tab categories. I have social. These are all from various Google Plus or the Google Plus team. And then promotions I chose. So I have things from Intuit QuickBase that were in this email box. So it's up to you if you want to use that. Again, you have to turn it on. You can go to the settings, click configure inbox, and then you can check and uncheck what you want for that tool as well. It's just allowing you to have a little cleaner primary box, which is where you're going to have most of your work, to-do lists, messages you need to respond to, and things like that. The next item I'm going to talk about is the priority inbox. And to get there, you would go to the settings, the little gear tab, and then the settings. And you want to go to the inbox tab. And here's where it's going to tell you that you have an inbox type. I already set up the tabbing, so that will appear here. So if you have that going on, you will see that. If you do not have that turned on, you won't see that at all. In the inbox type, I mentioned there were 4 different types of inbox. So if you click important first, it's going to separate it by, here are the important messages, everything else below it. If you have it unread first, it'll have unread messages, everything else below it. Starred will be everything starred, everything else below it. The last inbox is the one that you can actually customize. So you'll have options here. So you can say, I want the important items first, and then if I want to change this, I want to actually make important, then unread, and then I want everything else. So you can have 2 items, you can have 1 item, everything else below. If I want to add a 3rd section here, I want starred to be next. So I've set it up so I want important messages first, unread, starred, and then everything else falls below. And then in addition to that, I do have all the categories that I set up as well. The importance markers I talked about with the little icon, I have it set right now to show markers by messages marked as important, which again, this is a Google thing. Our crew email Google product will analyze these incoming messages as and interpret for you what's important. So if you want to use it for a while and you find that it's not quite as accurate, you can go ahead and just turn it off and say, I don't want any markers, and then it will turn that feature off. And we always have to save changes, and it's going to take me back to my inbox. So now you can see I have what's important first based on what Google's algorithm is. I have unread messages next. And if I scroll down, I have 1 starred message, so that's there, and then everything else is below that. So again, you can turn this on or off. So if you use it for a while and you decide, I don't really like it that way, you can go back to the default, which is called classic, I believe, inbox. And then just a few general items to point out if you have not noticed these in your settings. If you go to settings, along the general tab, I mentioned the default text style. Here's where you can actually change your text. So if you want it to be a different font, you want a different size, color, remove all the formatting, so just having it plain. So you can set that yourself. Another thing I talked about was I'm getting a reminder. Was the signature. So on the bottom here, you can see that there is no signature. So if you want to turn it off, you can. I can have my signature, but there's a checkbox right here. This signature before quoted text in replies and removes the dash that precedes it. So it allows you to have your signature quoted in the correct place. And just a little tip, if you have not used this either, there is a vacation responder, and my favorite thing about it is you can set the date, the first and end date, and so you can set that 3 days before you're going to be on vacation, put in your message, and it will automatically turn on the day that you've set it to start. Also on the bottom, you'll notice that you can also send it by not checking anything. You can just send it to everyone who sends you an email, but you can have it only respond to people in your contacts or only respond to Case Western. So depending on who you get email from, you might want to select either one of those. The other nice thing I like is it responds one time. So if someone sends you an email and you're out of office, they will get your email back. If they send you another one, they won't get another response. So I do like that you're not constantly bombarded with a lot of out of office for the same person. And then I mentioned labs. So I'm going to go ahead and click on labs. And a couple that I wanted to point out, if you just scroll down, there's an enable, disable on the right-hand side of each one. So you can enable it or disable it. I have the Google Calendar gadget enabled. You can disable by just clicking disable. That actually puts the calendar in the left-hand column, so you have a little gadget like you do for chat. I also mentioned the preview pane, which you can enable that, and I will show you where that shows up because I haven't enabled. And then also if you scroll down, there's all kinds of different labs. And one of the other one that I had enabled, let me scroll down here a little bit. Oh, maybe I don't have it enabled. Undo send. I'm going to enable that as well. That was another one. So I've enabled 3 that we can look at. And I'm going to click Save Changes. And it's going to take me back to my inbox. Now I set it up for the preview pane. And when you do that, it's going to put a little icon to the right. And it's going to give you a little drop down. So you can have no split, a vertical split, a horizontal split. So if I click vertical and I click a message, now I have that preview up. So if you prefer to work like this is a really nice thing. I think it's pretty new for the labs. I haven't seen it before. And if I want to change it to no split, it will take it back. So whichever one you like, the horizontal I will do as well. And when I select one, it'll show it underneath. So whichever way works for you, but that's how that works. Also, I mentioned the unsend, so I'm going to send a quick message to myself. And I'm going to click send. And it says you have undo. Message has been sent, and I can click undo. Message has been undone, and it recalls it and brings it back for you. It is very quick, so you make sure that you notice that yellow up there on the top. Another item I wanted to show you that I missed, along the top here, I talked about the words versus icons. This is the area where they will show up. So I have it set to text, and if I go in, I can reset it to icons. So if I go into settings, general, but there is a spot where you can actually change these. So that'll be your homework. You can look for that. It is under settings, general. And it will be set for icons, text, or icon. So it's a toggle that you can turn on or off. So that's some tips and tricks on Google Mail. So the next thing I talk about is going to be calendar. So let me go back. I'm going to stop sharing. So I hope everyone's finding this helpful. I see a lot of questions coming in. I'm hoping that we have a few. Well, actually, we have to go pretty quick here, but I will look at those and see if you need assistance. At the end, I will talk about moving to, I will be sending a survey, and then I'll also talk about where you can find additional information. So calendar, there's one fun thing I have found is you can actually browse interesting calendars. So sports teams, holidays for different countries, others. I just gave a couple of samples of the others. And just a reminder, you can access your calendar directly by going to webcalendar.case.edu. So rather than going through your email, clicking calendar, if you just want to see your calendar, you can do that. So on your calendar, there is a feature called appointment slots. I'll show you that very quickly. Event dimming, which allows you to dim past and future events so that only your today shows up in the center, which some people like, so they can only look at one day at a time and see what their agenda is for today. You can set your settings for your invites are also under the calendar settings, and I'm talking about how you use decline, how you accept messages. There's 3 different options there. Text reminders. You can have reminders on your calendar that text you to remind you. You do need to go to the settings in the mobile section and set up your mobile phone or mobile device so that that works and that it actually messages you. And then lastly, there are some labs. Appointment slots allows you to schedule sections of time on your calendar for others to choose a time. This is great for office hours or scheduling a meeting time. You can schedule a block of time, for example, from 9 to 12 and put them in 30-minute slots. And you can send a URL to the people you're inviting, and they can look at that calendar and choose what slot they want and put it in their name. Or they can, if they're in their calendar already, they can choose that slot. It will default to their name. Event dimming I spoke about pretty quickly. Invitation settings, text reminders, you'll need to use the mobile. Some of the labs. One of the biggest labs that I would suggest trying out is the event attachments. This allows you to attach items to a calendar event. So if someone opens that calendar event, they can see the PDF with the agenda, the materials, all of those things. Just one thing to keep in mind is that the attachments won't show up in the mobile calendar app. So if you have it on your phone and you click on calendar and it opens up, it's going to be very minimal of what you can see. We do have a short workaround for that, but just keep that in mind that mostly the event attachments will be when you're using the browser version. You can hide morning and night, so you only see about 7 to 5 p.m. if you want to do that. You can jump to a certain date. You can see when your next meeting is, and there's a bunch more of these as well. So I'm in this calendar and I want to create some I'm going to create some appointment slots. That's how you would do it. You would click on where you want the item, click on the appointment slot, enter the information. You can make it longer or shorter. So if you want it from 7 to 8, 7 to 10, and then when you create that, so I'm going to create this slot, and I go to edit details, you're going to send this link to the people that are going to be making the appointments, and when they go in there, they will see all these 30-minute slots that they can click on and schedule. I also mentioned the labs. I'll show you very quickly. If you go to the gear and settings, and there is a section for labs, looks very much like email. And I also mentioned, as we go to general, the event dimming, which if you scroll down, dim past events, dim recurring events, and future events. Also, you can scroll down farther, and I talked about invitations. So this section here is where you can set show events you've declined, add invitations to your calendar, and things like that. So that's a really quick overview of calendar and the changes that are there that you can use. So let's wrapping it up. I apologize that I must have clicked on something I should. So let me go back. You can actually find information if you go to google.com. You can look at their email. You can also find a lot of information on our partner, lynda.com. And she has actually a really nice video on using calendar. And that's where I found a lot of the tips from that as well. So you might want to try lynda.com, which is on help.case.edu. On the left, if you click lynda.com, it'll sign you right in there as well. And so more information is at help.case.edu. If you have a personal Gmail account, you can actually use some of the Google tools as well for looking up tools and tips on using Google Mail and Calendar. And so that's all we have for today. I will look at the questions and I will try to get back to you with answers. And thank you for attending today. I apologize for not having any time left, but I hope that you all have a good day, and I hope you've learned something new today about email and calendar. And we will be sending a survey, so please fill that out if you have future topics you would like to see on the ITS Connect session. Thank you for attending.